All right, Cameron Crowe here and Anabell Woodbury. We are going to talk about Annabelle's, and you go by Anabell, not Anna or anything else.
No, Annabelle's fine.
I
Yeah.
should have asked you that ahead of time. But first things first, I'm going to set the stage. If this is your first Coal Valley Speaks interview, I want you to know why we're talking. So about almost 2 months ago, I wrote a blog post, and here it is. And I thought this was going to be something that I would post, and a few people would be angry, and maybe I get a few pats on the back, and it would kind of blow over. It was something I just wanted to tell my story and get a perspective out there for the record about basically what I think about my high school looking back, Coal Valley Christian School. And it's primarily negative. And I explained why I feel negatively about it, even though when I left Coal Valley, I felt really positively, and kind of what happened and why I don't feel that way anymore. And it blew up. My phone was like buzzing nonstop for like a week, and dozens of people. People I heard from a lot of haters, and I heard from a bunch of people that were like, "Thank you so much for saying this. It needed to be said. I feel the same way. I didn't know anybody else felt this way. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And here's my story." And I started thinking, whoa, like after about like, I don't know, 20 or 30 of these stories, I was like, there needs to be a place for all these people to get together and talk. So made a support group on Facebook, started doing interviews, put together this website, coalvalleyspeaks.com is where all these like public information of like a lot of the stories are just in the support group, and you can join that here, by the way. There's a link to it. But some people have volunteered to share publicly, like Anabell has. And we even coordinated on a joint statement. And that was basically where we took quotations on all kinds of things from the support group and contributors from the support group. About 20 or more of us really contributed writing to this. And we summarized what we consider the problems and the themes and the possible solutions. So we put this together and sent it to the administration, and we are still waiting to hear back a couple weeks later. So there's, I think, some movement maybe behind the scenes, but we're still waiting to see if we can work together or not. And anyway, that's the context. Anabell, how did you first come across this stuff, and what went through your mind when you saw it?
One of my friends shared it, and she had a equally bad experience at Coal Valley. And when I saw it, I was at my dad's, and I was like, "Oh my God, I need to share this with everybody." So, yeah.
Why did you feel like you needed to share it?
Because I've been saying this stuff for years since I left, and it was just crazy to finally see somebody else saying it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So we'll definitely get into kind of like, what in particular you think about some of these issues. But can you start off by kind of sharing about like your background with Coal Valley? Like, when did you start, and what years were you there, and kind of at a high level recap?
Yeah. So I started there in 7th grade after a really traumatic experience at Meridian Middle School. And so my parents were like, we're going to switch it up. We're going to try and give you something new. So I believe I graduated 2017. So when was 7th grade?
Okay, so you're on the younger end of the support group.
I am, yeah.
But not the youngest. We have some current students. So.
Right, yeah. But I only went there from 7th to 9th grade. So.
Gotcha. So what happened? What was it like between 7th and 9th grade?
So I have a little list of things that happened.
Great.
I wanted my mom to join me for this because a lot of the stuff I've actually blocked out. but she just said she's works in ministry and she has people she cares about that currently go to Coal Valley.
Hmm.
So she didn't want to be seen as talking about it poorly or anything.
I think a lot of people are in that. There's a lot of people in the support group that I've asked for interviews, and they're like, I'm still too
Yeah,
connected. I don't feel like I can say something publicly, even though I totally agree with this.
right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to start with 8th grade. 7th grade was a really good year for me. It's exactly what I needed, 7th grade year. But 8th grade, I started falling into a depression and self-harming. And some of my friends found out about it, and they told the counselor, and my mom got called, and they ended up recommending a counselor for me, like an outside counselor. And it was not what I needed. It was very faith based, which I'm not saying is a bad thing, but like I did not need thoughts and prayers at the time. I needed some actual legitimate help. And he also recommended green smoothies to help, and that was just weird. um,
Hmm.
but I had no choice in going to this counselor. It and my mom said that it wasn't like they were trying to help me. It was more like we need to get this fixed so we don't have to deal with it.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I've never heard my mom say that until last night when we were talking about it. And I thought it was just me that felt that way. Like they didn't care about me. They just more cared about the image, it felt like, at least.
It was like damage control or like PR.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Huh.
Um and then I mostly had trouble with the teachers, but this is one event where I had trouble with some students where every time in Bible class I would ask for prayer requests because my depression was acting up again. The students will be like, "Well, have you tried eating cashews?" And like apparently cashews are like good for depression. I don't know, but like they
Are they
always
just
brought that
making
up.
were they just making light of depression, or what was
Yeah. Yeah. And
was
I never
the
really thought of it as a problem back then, but now I look back, I'm like, that
that's kind of
that was
bullying?
nice. Yeah.
Did the teacher hear this stuff? Like, did
Oh
they?
yeah. Oh yeah. No help was to be had from that teacher.
So did were they just making these jokes, and then the teacher was kind of just like turning a blind eye, or were they chuckling too, or did they just ignore it, or what?
Just ignore it. Yeah. Um. Sorry, just checking my list.
Yeah.
Um. There was another time with a student where he asked a different Bible teacher if he would go to hell if he committed suicide, and he thought he would. And like the teacher handled it great. He said that's not really how it works. Like everything was
How did he say it works?
I don't really recall how he said it works, but I'm pretty sure he said something along the lines of Jesus would love you no matter what,
Hmm.
which he was one of my favorite teachers, so I respect his answers. And I thought it was handled very well. Um, Another problem I had was in ninth or end of 8th grade, I forget which,
Hmm.
we had to do a poetry. Had to a thing to display poetry on, and you had to choose a theme. So being the little emo kid I chose darkness as the theme, and I used a lot of songs and a lot of darker poetry, and then I wrote a couple poetry pieces myself, and my English teacher loved it. She thought it was so cool. But the thing I built it on was this giant black tree, and the counselor walked into the office and saw it and called my mom, and she was like, did you know Anabell wrote stuff like this? And my mom was like, actually, yes, we helped her put it together. So
She thought she was gonna like drop a big thing on your mom, like,
yeah,
oh
yeah.
no. Why do you think she was concerned about that? The counselor.
I think it was just so out of the ordinary there. Like, there were several times that me and my friend, who were like the only emo/goth kids, where we were told not to wear something and other kids could wear whatever they wanted.
Hmm.
So it was very much like the damage control that we talked about earlier, where like they didn't want to be seen with somebody like me, I felt.
Because like do you think they felt like like your personal choices reflected on the school in some way, and like you had
I
to?
felt so, yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
And then I think there was one last thing that I really wanted to touch on.
Uh-huh.
Um, oh, I used to have really bad anxiety attacks. Sometimes I still do, but especially bad in ninth grade. And the office lady um, was just the worst whenever my mom came to pick me up because I was having an anxiety attack. Um, she would either fight it and not let me go, or like just make us feel bad for it. And
Hmm.
it was just crazy. Like, I'm having an anxiety attack here. I need to get out of school so I don't cause a scene, you know? Like, and plus, I don't know. My mom doesn't really agree with this part, but I wonder what it would have been like, my mental health journey. Like, it's been bad, my entire teenage years. And I just wonder if anything would have been different if they gave a shit, you know?
Yep.
Like, if they would have helped or sent me to a counselor that didn't recommend green smoothies, or like,
Like if they took it really seriously.
right, yeah. And most of it wasn't taken seriously.
You might have gotten into some, like, do you, when you say you wonder if it would have been better if somebody cared, meaning just that you would have gotten into kind of healthier routines and patterns, and
Yeah,
things that would get you on a good path sooner, and like could have
right,
avoided
yeah,
a lot of pain and suffering.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Why do you think the front desk person caused you and your mom so much grief?
I don't really know. Like, I've always wondered that myself. Like, I want to believe that she isn't just a horrible person, you know? Like, I want to believe that there was reasoning behind it, like, oh, well, we can't take you out of school due to this. But she never gave any reasoning other than, well, she never gave any reasoning at all, you know?
I mean, it almost sounds like she thought like anxiety attacks weren't really a thing, and like you just
Right.
needed to be coddled or something, and like that you were some, special, and they need like. Do you think that she was like, no, she just needs, some discipline and like, some,
Right. Yeah, that's kind of what it seemed like. I just never wanted to believe that.
yeah, right,
'Cause I have the heart where I want to believe there's good in everybody, but sometimes it's just that good.
yeah. Um, you mentioned one of the first things you mentioned is that before you got sent to the counselor, they noticed some self-harming behavior.
Hmm.
What was that kind of got their attention?
My friends, I actually told them about my self-harming behavior, and like best friends in the world, they went to try and get me help.
Hmm.
So I really appreciate that. I just wish it would have been the help I needed.
So would you say that they did a decent job at kind of noticing or like,
Yes. Yeah.
so that was
Yeah.
good. It was just kind of like the solution wasn't a good
Right. Yeah. And I told my mom, I'm really glad they gave you resources, like they gave them like a suggestion for a counselor. Like that's great. That's more than I could ever ask for. But the counselor they chose was a Christian counselor that mostly recommended praying and changing my diet.
one.
So,
Do you feel like that counselor like had like the appropriate I don't know, medical psychological training certifications? It almost seems like they're ignoring like modern mental health science in favor of like
I don't know.
alternative treatments or something.
I don't know. Um, he did own his own practice, so he really could do whatever he wanted. So,
Because yeah, that just seems to me like a very like incompetent counselor. Like
yeah,
it's like
agreed.
there's nothing wrong with being a Christian counselor as long as like you use the approaches and the techniques and like address the real mental health challenges that like
Right.
counseling associations and curriculums and things have like figured out and best practices that are adopted. Your personal beliefs shouldn't really affect what the treatment is, right?
Right. And I wasn't actually diagnosed until about 2 or 3 years later with anything. Like, nobody made that step. I was never put on any medication up until 2 or 3 years later.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
So yeah, it really seems like that counselor didn't know what they were doing.
No.
Um, back to you. You said you had a teacher that you really liked and that had a good answer about suicide and that you know God is more, um, I don't know, gracious and merciful, and even though suicide's a sin, that wouldn't doom you to hell, right?
Right.
Um, how do you feel like other sins were treated like that? Like, do you think that like did that same kind of message of love and that like God wouldn't send you to hell because you had this sin? Like, was that universal? Was it like,
No, it was not. I actually have a page from one of my old notebooks here, um, that me and my friend shared. And the title of this page is Project Rock This Stupid School. And like, I'm going to admit now, my thoughts were not in the right place then. Like, I just wanted to get revenge on them, basically. But
well, you're a teenager, that's pretty
yeah, I was a
normal.
teenager. Yeah. um, but it said, change the school, no more robots, no more homophobia, no more ignorance. Um,
What?
and
How old were you when
so
you wrote that?
probably 15.
So had
Um,
you? That was while you were still in there.
yeah, that was when I was still there. Um,
So you felt
and
these things. You're different than me in that like I didn't realize this stuff until I'd been gone for a long time, and like
no, like, I remember reading the handbook and saying no same sex couples or something like that. And when I read it and before I went there in 7th grade, I was like, okay, cool. But then I slowly met different people and realized that there are people like this. And then I myself came out family. Like, at first I was like, yeah, homophobia. What a cool thing. And then I was like, oh wait, I'm bisexual. Crap. And
wait,
I
that
was in love with,
that's like infringing. I'm not
yeah,
gay here. Yeah.
yeah. Um,
And you knew that while you were there or afterwards?
yeah, I was in love with my best friend ninth grade year, who was also a female. Um, and turned out later on we, separated and then came back and reconnected. And it turns out she was in love with me as well at the same time. So that was crazy. But
Yeah. Did you
I just,
ever, did you guys ever like, were there any like public displays of affection like in Cole or did you kind of
oh
keep that
yeah,
all under
everybody
wraps?
thought we were gay to begin with. But like we played it off as joking, so we never got really quote unquote in trouble for it. But I do remember, and I don't know if this is true, I do remember a girl leaving the school and her coming back and telling me and my best friend that she got kicked out because she confided in a teacher that she was gay.
Wow.
So that's why we always played it off as joking, is because we were so scared of getting kicked out.
There, it wasn't a safe place. You
Uh-uh.
couldn't, you couldn't be honest and expect, nothing would, no repercussions.
Right. Right.
Is that why you left?
Yeah, that's why I left after ninth grade. I waited until the DC trip and then I left because I really wanted to go to DC. But yeah, it was just not a healthy place for me. And I ended up going to Meridian High, and it was so much healthier. I got so much more done.
Hmm.
And yeah.
Did
But,
your did you confide in your parents while you were in Coal Valley about
oh, yeah.
being bisexual?
Um, yeah. So I'm not sure if I came out to them right after or if I had started talking to them during being at Coal Valley. Um, but my mom, she is the most gracious woman I know. She is the most um, Jesus-like person I know. You know, um, she didn't care. She was, well, obviously she cared, but not like you're going to hell.
Hmm.
And that's all I could have ever asked for, was just somebody to be like, you're okay.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Right. You had support.
Yeah.
Um, so this was actually exactly what I was thinking about. Like this, like okay, God wouldn't damn you for suicide, but it does seem like the teaching is God would damn you for being gay.
Right. Yeah.
Uh,
And I
is that
believe,
what you felt like the
yes,
message was?
yes. I believe one of my best friends now, who I met at Coal Valley, who happens to be gay, um, I believe she's been permanently damaged by the thought process at Coal Valley, that she just can't get past the fact that she's a sinner or that she's going to hell. And she's doing better, but it's really hard for her.
Do you have any ideas on why maybe that's the case for her and not for you?
I think it's because of the way we grew up. She grew up in that school. I just went there seventh through ninth grade. So it wasn't ingrained in me. In
Yeah.
fact, it was the opposite. Like I was ingrained to love myself and to love everybody else. And I feel like that's not the case at Coal Valley. It's like, I don't want to say hatred for other people, but like judgment.
Yeah.
And I just don't believe we're here to judge other people.
Yeah. Totally. Um, yeah. So, what do you? Well, first off, did you have anything else on your list that you wanted to cover? I've got
Nope,
a
that
few
was
kind of
about
normal
it.
standard questions here. What advice or what would you want students that are in Coal Valley that might be watching this interview to know or to hear?
Um, I think they should know that um, you're perfect the way you are, and these people can't change that about you. Um, if you believe in a God, which I do, I believe He isn't here to send you to hell. He's here to love you. And that's not what these people are teaching.
Mm-hmm.
These people are teaching that you have to be afraid, and
Yeah.
you don't.
Yeah. Um, what what do you want the administration or the teachers to kind of to hear or consider?
Um, I think that they should consider looking at every point of view before they judge someone, um, or like being more open to other opinions because I definitely had a lot of other opinions that were overlooked when I was there because I was different than other people.
You feel like different was considered wrong,
Yes, definitely.
and but that just does isn't that's not yeah, like I personally think that that's untrue and that's not how the world is.
Right.
Um, and you think and I think it's pretty damaging actually to have to teach to kids like if you're different you're wrong. I think that
Right.
leads to a lot of hate.
A quote my mom said last night when we were talking about this was we came into a party we were not invited to. And that's exactly what coming into Coal Valley feels like, being different or new, just new in general. Um, she experienced that with the parents. I experienced that with the kids and the administration. It was just really tough to come
Wow.
in.
Yeah. With that in mind, what do you want parents that are thinking about putting their kids in Coal Valley to hear or to consider?
Consider your kids' feelings because just because you think it's the right thing doesn't mean it is the right thing for your kid. I love my parents to death and I think they did the right thing for putting me in Coal Valley because none of us expected it to be how it was. But now that people know, they've got to keep their kids' feelings into account.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you think Coal Valley is an okay place to send your kid if they're not straight?
No. No.
Like hard no, no, like
Hard no.
0% approval.
Yeah. Maybe if there was change there, I think it would be okay. Like I don't mind Christian schools. I think it's a cool concept,
Hmm.
but in execution, it often doesn't come out right.
Yeah. Do you think there are other groups of kids that you would 100% say like no, do not put them there?
Um, Honestly, it was really hard being any kind of alternative music listener or fashion person there. Like, I got crap from the kids, I got so much crap from the teachers, like, thinking I was going to hell because I wore black. And, like, that was kind of traumatizing. It means like everyone I was close, you know, like I guess if you have a stronger mind than I do, like you can handle that kind of stuff, then go for it, but like they aren't going to accept you for who you are.
Well, it's almost like, why would you even try to go there and overcome this kind of treatment, especially when it's so expensive? Like, what's the
Right.
point when you can go to public school and not have any out of pocket, and it's like a healthier environment?
Right. Yeah. Like I had a kid at my public school that wore a trench coat every day. Like you could wear anything. And I don't agree with trench coats. So
Morally opposed to trench coats.
morally opposed to trench coats.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's good advice. I mean, do you think Coal Valley is a good place for, like, are there any kids where Coal Valley is a better place for them than a public school?
I don't think so, honestly. Um, you'll learn so much more, not just like academically, although I still believe he'll learn more academically at a public school, but you'll learn more just about the world, about how it's going to be when you get out there. Because Coal Valley sheltered you so much. Like they wanted to keep it Christian based and Christian based only, when that's not how the world works.
Yeah, totally. Like, you be more prepared to navigate differences.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anything else you want to cover? This is, I think, everything I had in mind. I think this is really great.
I think I've got everything covered. I just wanted to say thank you
Hmm.
for getting this all put together. Me and my best friend in high school always dreamed of a rebellion, but we didn't know how that rebellion was going to work out. And
Yeah.
here it is.
Here it is.
Here it is.
Yeah. Do you, on that line, do you think that other people should, like, do you have anything to say to people that are on the fence about sharing their story or participating in this movement in some way? Like, what would you want them to hear?
I think if for some reason you can't do it, just root us on. Like, I know it's hard to tell your story, so if you can't, just be there for us when stuff goes haywire. If stuff goes haywire, knock on wood, I hope it doesn't. But just keep supporting this movement, because it's really going to make a difference, I think.
How do you think it'll make a difference?
I just, nobody's ever said something before. And finally people are saying stuff. And finally people are listening. And it's just the coolest thing.
Yeah, no, I feel the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah, some days I'm like pinching myself. It feels like a crazy dream, like that this has all happened. Like,
right.
I mean, I knew I was going to write a blog post, but like I said, I didn't think anything was going to happen. And then just chain reactions, and it's like, whoa, we really have something here.
And like I've looked at like the people in the support group, and I'm like, they had trouble at Coal Valley, and I'm like, here I was like hating everybody else at Coal Valley, when really a lot of people suffered there. And
even the people that didn't know they suffered there sometimes,
right.
like me. Like, I consider myself maximum Coal Valley privilege. I had the best of everything. And I didn't know what a disservice they were doing to me until later, when I realized my mind had been closed for so long, and it was all fake. I mean, it was all a lie. I mean, I don't believe in God, but I don't mean that like they taught me that God was real when God's not real. I just mean like they taught me that everybody that's different is bad, and
Right.
that is untrue.
Yeah.
And until I realized that, and it took me years, I was I was just a giant dick to everybody. And it was hurting me too. I didn't like know all the things that I could learn from all these people, and like,
Right.
you know, what skills and like what they're better at than me, and like how I actually want to be like them in a bunch of ways. And like, you know, so,
Yeah.
so yeah. Well, cool. Thanks for your interview. Really enjoyed it. And yeah, can't wait to share it.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yep. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.